started. Okay, so we just started.
Okay.
I didn't know if you want me to start without you, though.
Yeah. Sorry, I've been pacing back and forth. Wickham's here. That's really cool. We started the podcast with Wickham. He's here, and Jonathan Shaw's here. It's really incredible. I really do feel like when we kind of started focusing, more on, it's just funny that Wickham's here because the first couple podcasts are just like art, culture, Kanye. And now I still think we could talk about that kind of stuff, but somehow we always just end up talking about, more recovery-based kind of stuff. Although I do want to touch on like Jonathan's books and maybe some of his relationships and his experience in Brazil, but
and the gypsies. We don't want to forget the gypsies. I mean,
feel like
Pat might not be into it, but I want to hear about it.
No, I feel like my voice.
Here, do you want to put your headphones on?
What
or
was I trying to say?
Not really, if you don't want
care
to.
About headphones. I mean,
yeah, no, you don't need them. I'll make sure.
It makes me self-conscious because then I hear myself through these things. I'm like, ew.
Yeah,
you don't have to wear them.
Yeah, I never do when I do that. I've done like hundreds of podcasts. Right. Well, I always really close.
Not like like a fit, like no less than a fist away.
Okay, that's
easy.
What
Joe says.
Got it.
What I was going to say was I feel like having Jonathan on the podcast was like a dream of ours.
Whoa.
It really was. Or even Randy or
dream
Paul
on, brother. I mean, I'm a lot more available than you think.
Yeah.
I guess, because...
No, it's just weird because this thing has just sort of... It's becoming effortlessly... I put a lot of effort into it, but it's like
I get it.
Paul came into it, and it's almost like, for lack of a better analogy, God has graced Paul with like this. He's finding Gary Litt and he's bringing Jonathan Shaw, and it's like he came out of nowhere. He came out of the Instagram or the social media.
Yeah, I saw one of your something on Instagram. I was like, that's Pat, dude. Like,
yeah.
just hit you up and
I was like, dude, just
invite me over.
It's funny because when you're not like in someone's life and you're not really talking to them, like I know Paul, right? But like when he hit me up, my initial reaction was like, my first thought was like, I don't know, like, but then
there's that big thug from Primetime.
Well, not really. Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I guess so, but like not really. But I'm so good at like just like bringing everyone. Just like I've changed. Like I go to the. Hey, come on! I go.
It took a second for you to invite me. Yeah.
Yeah, because almost because I didn't even know. You don't even think that's an option.
You didn't invite me till I mentioned the hat. I said that looks like a 3rd edition Big Book. You'll come to my meeting.
Really? Yeah. You know
That's
what it is?
went.
I don't even necessarily think people want to come or even would come. Yeah, it's weird, but now it's starting to become a thing that's like actually pretty cool. So thanks for coming.
Yeah,
Thanks
man.
for having me, brother.
Yeah.
When Paul showed up, it took me back like 7 years or something.
Yeah.
It was a trip.
So just to catch everyone up, like me, Paul, and Billy and Jonathan, before COVID, I want to say even like a year or two, like I want to say before Primetime started to sort of
6-7 years, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, like before I guess you could say before that particular meeting started to
disintegrate.
Kind of disintegrate.
It's kind of, what's the word? Degenerate, I think. Is
I don't know.
It's losing its savor.
It was a great meeting.
savor, brother.
Yeah, it was a great meeting.
It was, dude.
It was awesome.
You go back in Primetime, what, like 20 years or something more?
Not that long, but Randy
I go
was
back like 20 years in Primetime, and I remember when that shit was like the in place to be, man. Like even those Casey meetings, dude. We used to have like these lavish barbecues on the beach because somebody had like $1 zillion beach house in Malibu, and we'd go have meetings there.
Casey's my all-time favorite speaker.
Well, he could talk the talk, but man,
yeah, I heard.
Okay, I'll
knows
say
that
it,
12
man.
and 12.
I'll say it. He's a straight up fucking psychopath. I mean, I know that guy well.
Wow. Well, I mean, what's interesting is I feel like a lot of times the people who carry the strongest message are the ones that are
The best talkers are the fucking crippled walkers, man.
there. It is,
You know,
right?
not always, but
or at least they were, and it's really hard.
it's hard to put those two together, and then it's like a big slap in the face. But the cool thing about Casey was he used to say this thing, which I say to this day. He would say, "The truth is the truth, even when a liar says it."
That's Big Frank says
That's
that
what
too.
I'm saying. I
That
love
was
that.
his fucking phrase, and it applies to him so poetically.
Big
because
Frank
he's
would say, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Boom. That's it, man. So,
Yeah.
I don't want to.
Principles before personalities.
Yeah.
That's been the saving grace for me
Yeah.
for almost 20 years in primetime, man.
I mean,
That's
like-
been the saving grace.
And I feel like that's why I could potentially even send. Yeah, he's playing. That's how he plays.
That's how he plays. I'd hate to see when he gets pissed.
No, I think he
that's-
was pissed.
Yeah.
looks pissed.
Well, he just doesn't like when you touch his hands for some reason when he's sleeping. He's just funny though. No, he's like
Dude, you lose a fucking finger.
no, he doesn't bite. It's weird. Like he'll growl and do that, but
Damn.
maybe
Well,
that
you know.
was God's way of stopping me from saying what I was about to say,
He's a good
which
dog.
was that I would even send what's her name's share a woman who
Yeah, I had an encounter with what's her name and
to who
Do
Yeah.
I know what's her name with the?
Yeah.
You know when the big fat
no
behind?
no Astrid, she came here and ruined Billy's life.
Whoa.
She called his wife and said some
What?
Yeah, well because
She's like, she's so chismosa, man.
it's just hard. It's
I didn't
hard.
know, but I know now. Yeah.
Well, because she's
She
also helped.
loves to gossip,
Yeah.
and and she's also part of like a morbid death thrill kind of thing. Like she's always the one. Like, did you know that so and so
Right.
just died, and so, and they died, and they kicked the bucket, and they suicided. And
Wait, so I wonder.
it's like,
I
what's
just,
up with that?
for some reason, against my normal punk rock, fuck you and everyone else and what they think judgment, I just wonder if we should not be talking
Names.
about.
Yeah,
Because let me just say this.
She made threats.
Astrid's. Let me just say this. She carries an incredible message, and I was
she's
so
charismatic. She's brilliant.
Yeah.
She's fucking eloquent. She's. I told her she'd make a great writer if she could focus that channel, that expression into some creative channel
Mm-hmm.
other than just. But I mean, there's nothing wrong with what speaking, carrying the message the
But
way
so-
she does. It's great.
But
She
what
saves
happened
lives.
here? What happened here that night was wrong. And,
What happened?
Well, someone was filming her, and she got really upset. We film everything in this house. I'm trying to make a show. I'm creating content. I'm sharing my life and my experience, strength, and hope with as many people as possible. And we're building a platform, and it's really incredible. A lot of people kind of judge that and aren't used to that. So
Sour grapes, brother.
so she really got upset with this dude one of my employees, and was threatening to kill him, and she got on one of her you fucked with the wrong woman, just crazy.
Whoa.
And then I tried to calm her down. I have the whole thing on film. I have the whole thing
Well,
filmed.
She got all ghetto with
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, ghetto Viking. For
and
sure.
then I
Knives. There were knives around. She
Knives
was talking
involved?
about those.
almost.
yeah.
Well, she said I could just grab one of those fucking knives and stab him and I was like,
Whoa.
yo. But then we sat down, and I have the whole thing filmed, by the way.
Whoa.
And honestly, it was hard for me not to post that, because I want people to see what happened.
Yeah.
This is what we're dealing with. But I didn't, just because I don't know. I just didn't, which is crazy because
And she's spreading her shit about me that's not true
Yeah.
all over my community.
But
that's why I've always kept to principles before personalities. Because if I started taking the personalities real serious, I would never fucking participate in another 12-step
But this
fellowship
is
for the rest of my fucking life.
serious
Right.
shit. Serious.
Well, I
stuff.
know. I mean,
I mean,
these
I even thought I was
personalities
doing
are,
her for liable.
well, that's an option.
Yeah, it is an option. I don't know what I don't know. Anyway, I feel a little weird about talking about her too.
But
I don't blame you.
look, bottom line is, I said, you know what? Get the fuck out, because she started coming at me. It got crazy. I'm like, you know what? You need to leave now. You're toxic. You need to leave.
and this was my birthday
And-
party, so
What?
It was his
Yeah.
50th birthday party.
What?
yeah.
So she leaves.
so
She leaves. She
out of
calls Billy's wife, and basically convinces Billy's wife that he's a horrible person,
What?
and uses some stuff against him that Billy,
Damn.
and then he couldn't come home that night. So he's been living here for the past 3 months.
Good Lord.
Yeah,
It's just
the biggest issue
But
is my
it's a
kid.
good thing, because we've been doing the podcast. We've been building the Learning to Lose brand together, and it's given us a chance to really focus on this stuff, because it's more than just a podcast. I got him. What do you got now on TikTok? 5,000? I mean, this guy has 5,000 followers. Like,
Right on.
Danielle's got like 15. I got like fucking 300,000 almost. Yeah, it's
you
crazy.
guys are fucking-
20,000 on YouTube. And these are numbers. Look, I hate to be like, oh, look at me. But it, when you can build a follower count, then you can now create art. Like I can already tell that you get that. You value that. You understand that when you create art, if you don't want a middleman, you can actually go direct to your fans.
Well, it's an opportunity to be of service.
Well, that too.
I mean, no, that.
But I also want to just make art and have like
Well,
20,000.
art is it's
Right.
expressing the gifts that God, or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
the creative spirit, whatever you want to call it, if you don't like the, God word, whatever, but it's an opportunity for you to transmit something bigger than your little ego self
There for a second.
to share and pass forward into the world of
Yeah.
consciousness and be of service, to be able to help
I
inspire.
never thought of art as service. I like that.
No,
Well, that's
like-
the only way I can approach art. I had my sponsee call me yesterday. He's an artist, and he's also
Thanks so much, Paul.
taking commercial
You started
jobs.
this with me.
Hey, you deserve that spot. I've been doing this 3 weeks in a row.
Sorry. What were you saying?
Okay, so this guy, he's an artist, but he's also a commercial artist in that he's doing shit, with his art to make money, and he's like, yeah, I'm working for these clients, and they want to get all involved, and they don't respect my creative input, and I was like, how much are they paying you? He was like, oh, shitload of money, and I was like, well, guess what? You don't get to be creative. You get to be a fucking whore, a well-paid whore, and be grateful for the money that comes in, because that money will support you doing your art.
Right.
And with your art, you can say fuck you to everything and everybody and work with absolute integrity. But if you're getting paid for a job, then forget about your creativity unless they welcome that. If they don't, then you're doing what they are saying to do, and you're being an obedient slave. And thank God that you have the means to take in all this money, because you can use that money to support yourself when you decide to take a year off and write your book, or go take photographs of whatever the fuck for you, for the integrity of your connection with your creative self,
But like
higher self,
you
whatever.
can't. Like, everybody wants to do their own thing.
But
Like,
art and commerce do not always make happy bedfellows. That's what I'm saying.
commerce, like,
Commerce, cha-ching,
yeah.
bling bling.
But see, you're absolutely right. And I think that's literally why my main goal for the past 10 years has been to get as many followers as I can
That's
get.
awesome.
So that I don't have to fucking listen to what you think I should do. I'm just doing this. And me and Wickham started doing this, what?
It was 2 years ago.
And I remember Wickham was like, "Oh, we should just do a podcast." But then I was like, "Yeah, but the YouTube's important too."
And then you were like, everybody has a podcast. I don't want to.
Oh, what were you gonna call it? It was gonna be called like just another fucking podcast or some shit, you know. But
The Ridge podcast. What was it?
that's what it started as. But my initial idea for the name of it was gonna be like, "This is not a podcast" or some dumb shit.
So what's it called now?
Learning to Lose.
I love that.
Yeah, I see this hat.
That's fucking. I love that.
Yeah, I just got the Learning to Lose Incorporate.
That's so fucking cool.
Yeah, corporation.
There's nothing like that. It's weird. I was listening to Joe Rogan today.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to podcasts all day long when I'm doing mindless shit around the house. I will either talk to people on the phone or I'll listen to podcasts. Joe Rogan, I love Joe Rogan, but sometimes he goes into areas where I'm just like, what? What are they talking about? Like, I don't know what the fuck they're talking about, and I'm like feeling like a fly on the wall in some fucking, scientists convention or something. I'm just like, what?
Have you listened to any Joe Rogan?
It's not
lately?
always very.
Have you heard the Duncan Trussell's one?
Oh, it's so good. It's like
5
hours long.
Yo, but they start going into some like really cool. I loved it. I love it. I think he's. But yeah,
No, he's brilliant.
I hear what you're saying.
But
though.
what he was saying today in this podcast is he was talking to this chick who's like another comedian. She's really cool. I just like the dialogue between these two. Sometimes they'd lose me. They'd be talking about shit I don't understand, using words like virtue signaling. I don't know what that is. A lot of shit. I mean, I'm kind of outside of culture. I don't really know what's going on. I live half my life in like third world countries, and I come up here and I'm like, what? What does this mean? What is whatever? But
I'm with you. I don't know what this shit means either.
well, he was talking about how valuable it is to learn how to fucking lose. He's a martial arts guy.
Yeah,
and
I'm
he's
actually kind of
had his ass kicked a billion times.
Someone sent me
and
that.
he was like, "That's
Or
really."
and then you sent me another one.
Did he say learning to lose
I don't
Basically, he said how important it
in
is
a different way?
He said how important it is to build character.
Yeah.
To get your ass kicked.
Right.
A lot of people have been talking about it.
And it
Right.
really, well, I mean, that's the first step in fucking the 12-step, philosophy.
Yeah.
It's like the first step is admission of complete defeat. Everything starts from there.
I know.
man,
It's so crazy, right?
I mean, that's the gateway.
It's like
to
counterintuitive.
total
Right.
Enlightenment is like rock bottom, eat shit, and die 1,000 deaths, and suddenly, the doors to enlightenment open up.
And sometimes the ego can be a big villain in that scenario. The ego kind of makes it harder to see that you're at a low place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or kind of you're not even aware of like how low you could be sometimes because your ego's like,
Of
no, I'm
course
good.
not. The ego
prideful.
has devices for survival because, like any entity in God's creation, its primary purpose is to survive.
Right.
Is to thrive and survive at whatever it does, good, evil, whatever in between. But any being has one primary purpose, and that is to survive and perpetuate.
Yeah.
And the ego, when it's not working to your best interest, is a parasitic entity that must survive at all costs. So it'll put you in a state of unconsciousness and denial.
Yeah.
And you don't know what the fuck you're doing, but you're doing it anyway. You're like fucking, what do they say? Like remote controlled.
Yeah.
Like a zombie.
Like we saw an example of the kid that popped in our meeting today. He's like purely run on ego, I think. He doesn't even realize it, though.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like
why in
sometimes
prime
you're unaware.
time,
Well, you
they
don't realize it. That's the thing.
Especially when you're in it.
Like when you're insane, it's because you're unconscious. As soon as you become aware of the insanity and you say, "Fuck, I'm insane," automatically you're not insane anymore. It's like that's the trick. That's the beautiful
to
thing
just say
about-
you're insane.
to say, I must be insane. I'm sticking fucking needles in my neck and, fucking
neck.
jerking off to, horrible porn or whatever, I'm doing. And one day you have that aha moment. You go, I'm insane. This is insane. suddenly you're not in that moment. You are no longer insane.
Well, that's why in primetime they focus on what you're up against a lot in the beginning. So it reminds you, oh, that's right. I'm mentally ill, or however you want to say it.
Yeah.
So what about like? What was I going to say? Oh yeah, like self-knowledge availed us nothing. Like, how does that play into this? Because like it kind of seems like contradictory a little bit.
I'm not so sure I subscribe to that, even though that is one thing that's written. It can be so easily taken out of context.
Well,
I think what they're saying. I think what they mean to say. Sorry, but what they mean to say, I think, is that self-knowledge alone, by the unaided will, avails us nothing. But self-knowledge, if it comes to you through contact with a higher force, with a higher power, with God, whatever you want to call it, if that self-knowledge comes from fearless and searching moral inventory and then is given to God all credit for, thank you, God, for enlightening me to these character defects and stuff, then
basically they're just saying without the power, the knowledge isn't going to help you.
The knowledge alone.
Without the higher power.
Yes.
Yeah. That's great, because that line used to bother me, because I love self-knowledge, like learning about myself.
Yeah.
Well, that's super
but
important.
we have to have the willingness to try to apply it, and like I can know that
we talked about it tonight at the meeting, applying it. Actually.
Yeah, I think knowledge. I'm gonna go on a quick little tangent real quick. Just hang in there with me, okay? Because this all came from Dane, right?
From what?
My friend Dane Rippey, who died of cancer five years ago. He wrote the song called "Learning to Lose," and he was.
Wow.
I was in a punk band with him called Therapist.
Cool.
Therapist, the Rapist. We rape your ears, and they're pissed. We're pissed.
So what was this dude that came in and freaked out?
Well,
on me
hold
tonight?
on. We can get to that in a second.
wanna know what
But
he
first, I want to play. I want to play a song called "Knowledge" that Dane wrote.
Okay, I've heard this. I'm gonna go pee while you're doing that.
And I feel like I'm gonna we can listen to the song. But I just posted this on my Instagram.
I don't know what that is, but it was
it's my phone.
Sitting next to me making weird noises.
So if you want to listen to Dane's music, you can go to Dane Rippey on SoundCloud. I've uploaded all the music that he sent me when he was writing it with cancer, and we were in a band called Therapist, and that's also a SoundCloud that exists. So this is the song, and we'll play it, and then I'll tell you the lyrics afterwards. Excuse the sound, it's not. We recorded this in my room doing all kinds of drugs. So I spit at the saying, knowledge is power. All you need is the wrong person to turn the world sour. So you may make a great living and you have a golden degree. But when it comes to common sense, the two laymen like me, to make the world more livable for other people, not just me, while the genius minds of the world battle over penis envy. So I spit at the saying, knowledge is power. All you need is the wrong person to turn the world sour. Knowledge is power. Power is corrupted. Power isn't happiness. Power is abuse and plague. The genius minds of the world turn their matters into games. Knowledge is not power. Because knowledge, knowledge is power, and it's like, well, you can be really smart and you can, but if you have humility and love with knowledge, then you can do some good stuff.
Knowledge can also be bad too. Like if you look at the statistics of the internet rising and people like leaving religion, it's like completely like they're the same line.
Okay, but maybe they're finding spirituality.
Right.
Because I think religion is kind of a flawed human creation, whereas the stuff we're doing isn't religious. It's spiritual principles, you know?
Yeah.
And there's a lot that can be taken from those things, you know? But yeah, I wanted to ask you though real quick, are you following what's happening with me and Ridge or my YouTube?
A little bit, yeah. I see I have TikTok and YouTube and Instagram.
Yeah, what do you think about what's going on?
I think the reality show is a good idea. We've been wanting to do it for a long time.
But bro, like we got 20K now on YouTube.
Whoa.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
20K.
I remember when it was 7K.
Well, we were like trying to get to 10. I think I was going to throw a party when we got to 10,000.
Yeah.
And then this TikTok thing happened, which is crazy because this TikTok, it's a new platform that's giving anyone a voice because the algorithm is so amazing.
Dude, yeah, that's the craziest part. That's why it's dope, is because like everyone looks at their FYP, not their following, which is the For You page. And so it shows you other people's shit.
You got hyped on it when you posted that video with that one guy and it got a bunch of views and you didn't have a bunch of followers. But that video got a bunch of views because the algorithm puts you in front of 500 new people every time you post something. Yeah. And they decide.
Oh, is that true? Is that a fact?
Everyone gets on a For You page.
Whoa.
Every single person goes on 500 people's For You pages.
That's amazing.
And that's how they decide whether to push it to more people. So if you make a really good post that reacts with that first 500 people, no matter how many followers you have, it has the potential to reach millions.
That's amazing.
Whereas that's not how it is with Instagram. That's not how it is. So that's how I was able to grow my thing, because people were seeing me and my wife like fighting, like a real fight, right? And they're like, "Whoa, this feels like real. I don't know I don't know if I like this or I don't like it, but I definitely identify with what is happening because I've had it happen in my marriage, you know?" And then the next post is us like talking about where we were wrong and how we got through that. And the next one is like, you know, whatever, me just talking about how I'm alcoholic and I'm sober 15 years and I still have to watch my mind. And then I got into this sober category and it's like, you know.
Think about like you've been posting kind of the same thing. Like before TikTok, you're posting that on Instagram.
Yeah.
It was not the same reaction at all.
Yeah.
You know?
So I almost feel like I could, you know, using Joe Rogan as an example, like bringing people on, like Joe Rogan likes to bring people on his podcast that have knowledge and experience about things he's interested in, you know, like health or science or hunting, you know, bow hunting. So like Jonathan Shaw has been an artist for a long time, and I think I'm just interested in sort of like maybe, I guess if you will, like maybe the cliff notes of like your career.
Well, let me go.
Yeah, no, you can go.
That's what I care. I don't care about all this other shit, but I want to hear about art and philosophy and like tapping in. And so can I just start by asking you about your heritage, the gypsy thing? Because I find that so interesting.
Okay, my father was a very, very famous musician back in the 30s and the 40s. Mm-hmm. And, my father was a guy named Artie Shaw.
Yo!
That sounds familiar.
That's a huge name.
Yeah, he was big. He was like the Mick Jagger of his generation back in the 30s.
Wow.
So he was huge. He was that famous. He was like a superstar. And he married my mother. My mother was a Italian actress who was, you know, very famous in Italy right after World War II, before I was born. And, you know, these two had this big Hollywood romance, and it was like a big deal. And this was like Hollywood royalty back before I was born.
So it was all public and like...
Oh, super public, you know, super big deal. Huh. My father was married before my mother. She was like wife number 7 or something. He was married to Lana Turner. He was married to Ava Gardner. He was married to, you know, like hot patooties.
Hold on a second. Your dad was married to Ava Gardner.
Yeah. Yeah.
And was that? And then you were born after?
I was born to my mother in 1953. My mother was wife number 7. My father had been like
These guys, man.
My father's like, you know, extramarital relationships were like Judy Garland, Billie Holiday, you know, all these, you know, like major chicks, you know.
Wow.
He was, you know,
he was like a Marlon Brando type.
Yeah, he was a badass. Well, Marlon Brando was, you know, family friend when I was growing up, you know. So
wow.
My father and mother divorced really violently when I was a little baby, you know. My mother fired a gun at my father, and she was a terrible shot, so he didn't get killed. But
did it hit him? Did he get wounded?
No, he jumped behind a sofa. This is all in my books, you know.
Wow.
But yeah, so it was like, you know, I grew up with, you know, my mother, who was an insane alcoholic, God rest her soul, and my father was never present in my life until, you know, I got sober, you know, when I was in my late 40s. And then I went on this quest to sort of discover where I came from and what this insane heritage, you know, was, this demon seed of alcoholism that ran through my lineage. It's a long...
Both sides?
Well, my father was, you know, a co-alcoholic. He was attracted to alcoholic women. They were all either alcoholic or neurotic in some other really dysfunctional way. So my father had his own really gnarly demons. He never really was a drinker, but he was attracted to that darkness. And my mother, you know, God rest her soul, she was just totally insane, and I grew up in that insanity. And went on to become, you know, a young, aspiring, you know, alcoholic, drug addict, whatever, you know, from a very early age.
Did you have any brothers or sisters?
I had a half a brother by my father with another wife.
Oh, but you didn't grow up with him?
No, I only met him once. He came over to the house when I was like 15, and he was maybe 20 or something, and he went in the bathroom and shot up heroin. And I was like, hey, that looks pretty good, you know, and then I never saw him again. So anyway, yeah, you know, but the gypsy thing, because you asked about gypsy. So my mother...
All this is very interesting. So any information you want to give me,
I mean, the thing is, it's really hard for me to talk about this stuff in any really coherent fashion because I spent decades of my life, you know, coming to terms with my heritage. And I'm still working on that because I think that's a lifetime.
What do you mean coming to terms? I'm not. What is that?
Well, coming to terms is coming to know things about, you know, my ancestors. I've done a lot of ancestral work, you know, in my studies, you know, in my spiritual growth or exploration or whatever you want to call it. You know, I've had to really go deep into the, you know, into the past, not just my past, but the past of, you know, my heritage. And my mother was the daughter of a insane, crazy, murderous, alcoholic gypsy from Eastern Europe. And I found out that, you know, I have gypsy heritage in that, you know, my people, ancestor-wise, were Roms, which is, you know, Romani, gypsies. And so that's kind of...
This might be a dumb question, but, like, what exactly is a gypsy? Like, I've heard of it.
Well, that's a long study. And, you know, everybody's got their little iPhone nowadays, so you can just Google, you know, gypsy culture and, you know, find out.
The little bit I know is they're a separate culture, and they don't establish anywhere. They travel.
No, we're travelers.
Part, yeah.
My people are travelers by nature, and I've been a traveler all my life. Right. It's interesting because neither my father or my mother were really much for travelers, but it's like I kind of reclaimed my ancestral heritage from a really early age. You know, from the age of 14, I left home, and I've been on the road, pretty much lived all over the world. I've lived in like 37 countries. I speak like, you know, 4 languages pretty fluently, and that just happened. You know, I have rolled all over the world in my life, and I've actually lived, you know, with authentic gypsies in Brazil, and was kind of adopted by gypsies in Brazil, And I would always tell them, yeah, I'm really ashamed because, to be around you guys, because you guys are like really real Romani gypsies, and you hold the culture and you speak, Romanese, and you speak the language. Mm-hmm. And, I was disconnected from my gypsy heritage, so I never learned the language. I don't know really the customs of my people. And you guys, I feel a little ashamed to, be part of you guys. And this one old gypsy, this old Rom, he looked at me and he said, Cigano, that's what they call me. He said, Cigano, you are more of a gypsy than half of the gypsies I know, just in your essence of who you are. And I was like, okay, I'll take that. Thank you. Yeah. And he sort of embraced me into that culture, which I really knew nothing about, but it was in my blood, man. And I discovered that through just living the life that I've lived, and it's like, what a blessing to actually come to terms with something that you're so unconscious about most of your life. I don't want
to offend you or anything, but aren't gypsies known as thieves or something?
Yeah, there's a lot of that, Gypsies, they've had a hard history. They've been outcasts in every country that they inhabit. There's gypsies all over the world. There's 500,000 gypsies in Brazil. There's hundreds of thousands of them in Mexico. They're here in the United States.
Where did they originate from?
They started supposedly in India and Pakistan.
Oh, okay.
So, but like I say, I don't know the whole history of it. I just know what was in my family and in my blood and in my heritage. And, I'm not really somebody that could talk much about authentic gypsy culture because I'm removed from it. It's just a heritage thing.
I remember I interviewed this lady who was 100 years old. She's sort of family in a way. And when she was young in L.A. was just a little town.
Yeah.
There was none of this.
Yeah.
It was just there's the L.A. River and a little town.
This was all farmland.
She said there was even little forest and stuff there. And her dad used to tell her if she didn't behave, she was going to drop him off with the gypsies. There was actual gypsies living in L.A. in the forest.
Yeah.
I thought
that was they would travel. I would see them in Brazil. I'd travel across Brazil on a motorcycle a lot over the years, and I would see gypsies on horseback with caravans, the men and their horseback, with dressed kind of matadors and, with their hats and they're really noble, exotic looking people. Those were the authentic gypsies that I used to see as a teenager in Brazil, real, traditional Roma gypsies,
How do you pronounce that?
Roma.
Roma.
I don't know why I think Italian when I hear that word. It's a Romanian word?
It's Romanese or Rom. A gypsy is called in their culture Rom, R-O-M, or Roma for, gypsies. And the language is Romanese. And it's,
they still speak.
They all speak Romani,
even now to present day.
Yeah, if you got gypsies in America and gypsies in Eastern Europe and gypsies in the south of Spain, they all speak a common language.
It's kind of cool because, in the movies and stuff, it's this mysterious gypsy thing, but I didn't know it was real. It's a real culture.
It's a real culture,
but it's always played out in the movies.
All of these psychic places that you see with the neon light, where it says psychic.
Yeah.
Those are all gypsies.
Oh, really? What's the philosophy behind moving all the time and their whole lifestyle? What's the reasons? They're is religious or?
It's more of it's a culture. It's a culture. The gypsies, have no destination. They have no home, and that's their home.
Wow.
And that's kind of been my life.
Really? So do you move around or?
I've moved around all my life.
But you have a home?
I have homes in all different countries. I have homes and families everywhere. I could go to Brazil tomorrow and be just as connected with people, places, and things as I am here. And I could go to Mexico and the same thing. I just fit right in.
Well, where in Mexico?
Well, I live in a place called Veracruz, which is not on the tourist map at all. You could walk around Veracruz.
Is it southern, northern?
It's the south of Mexico on the Gulf Coast, and where I live, it's Mexican. There's no tourists. There's no foreigners. You never see a foreigner there.
Yeah, I went to Mexico with somebody who had family there, and I stayed with their family for a few weeks, and we were out in the little towns and stuff.
Yeah.
I had no idea. It was super cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
It's traditional. The places where gringos go, that's not even Mexico,
So how old were you when you were like, I'm going to write? Or was there something that happened before that was artistic that you were doing?
I started writing when I was really, really young, when I was like 12, 13, 14.
Just like in a notebook?
Yeah, just writing weird, random stories and shit, I was lucky to have been sort of weirdly mentored by a guy named Charles Bukowski when I was like 17 years old.
No way.
Yeah, I met Bukowski when I was like 17, and I was a junkie. I was a teenage junkie, alcoholic, living in some cockroach, slum in East Hollywood, and I got my first piece published in like an offshoot of the LA Free Press, which was kind of like, the hippest thing back then in the 60s. It was like the Free Press was like where it was the voice of the underground.
Well, that's amazing.
All right, sorry, I got to go get some beaties.
You were a teenager and you were already on this path.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing because I wish I knew my path when
I didn't know my path. I was just doing what I did.
You just do what you do.
My heroes back then were like Henry Miller, Louis Ferdinand Celine. Charles Bukowski became one of my heroes. Bukowski became one of my heroes just from reading the Free Press. And then one day I published my first piece of published writing was in the Free Press. And then I was like, wow, I've been published in the same fucking birdcage liner as Charles Bukowski, who, I used to read his column every week, and I'd be like, this guy's great. So I went and found out where he lived, and I went to his house with my little notebook and stuff, and like a bottle of whiskey and a 6-pack of beers. And I went there and knocked on the window, and he, let me in.
To smoke these like fucking.
And we hung out, and I remember.
So he welcomed you, huh?
Well, in
Sorta.
a roundabout way. We got drunk together, and then he punched me out.
Fucking A, bro.
Yeah, because I mouthed off to him. I was a fucked up, punk ass little bitch.
Bukowski will let you in. Bukowski, from what I actually was kind of obsessed with Bukowski. I've become obsessed with him and watched like all his YouTube videos. Like he has. If you want to know about Bukowski, you can search him on YouTube and you can watch him.
Oh, he's amazing.
Readings in front of people. You can know it's all there. It's actually the only thing I've ever downloaded from YouTube to watch was a documentary on Bukowski. And he smokes these beaties all the time. So I fucking bought a bunch of beaties because I just wanted to like smoke them like Charles Bukowski. And I sold them to Jonathan.
He's addicted
I
to
sold
those.
him a bunch of them.
Wow.
Yeah, you get them from India. Or
I know. I've been to India. I've smoked beaties.
I'm like, I'm obsessed with him because he's unapologetically honest and controversial and dark and honest and
poetic, man. He
poetic
had the soul of a fucking.
He did Meditations in an Emergency, right? Was that him?
No, not that I know of.
And I could tell that you were influenced by him, and I could tell that.
Well, I don't write like him,
but you seem like to embody a similar spirit.
He was a big part of my lineage and my life in this world because as a young writer, I used to hang out with him, and I read everything he ever wrote. And then I stopped writing. I just got so deep into draw. I remember, he told me the most important thing ever that was ever told to me as an artist. He said, because I showed him all this writing. And, I had other really respectable writers read my early attempts and say, oh, yeah, you got great potential. You'll be a great writer someday. Bukowski didn't give me that.
Yeah.
He told me, but you're just a fucking fucked up little punk ass kid living in Hollywood. What the fuck are you going to write about?
Right.
You'll never write about anything until you have lived. And you ain't living, kid.
Wow.
And that's when I was like, fuck you, you old fart. And he punched me out. And then we became great friends.
And then you went and like lived.
And then, I kicked dope when I was like 18 years old. I kicked dope. I scraped together a couple $100. I packed an overnight, little satchel. And I stuck my thumb out on the fucking highway. And I wound up in Mexico a couple days later.
Living.
And I hoboed around Mexico for several years. And then I caught work on a ship in the port of Veracruz and wound up in South America and immigrated to Brazil and stayed there until I was in my, mid-30s. So,
in Brazil.
In Brazil.
In that town where it was like dark and violent.
I lived in a lot of places, man. I lived on the road. And
he rode on the road.
No.
That's fucking
Kerouac. Who was another big inspiration to me when I was a kid.
Yeah, I don't understand him yet, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I like Bukowski because I'm like, wow. Like,
Bukowski
hits me.
Can I ask you a little, like, were you afraid? Like, you're just a young guy going to some country. You didn't speak the language yet, I'm assuming. And like, what was going on in your head? Like, what were you thinking?
What was going on in my head? See, it's real. What was going on in my head was like, I don't know. I don't know, and I didn't know then. I just knew. Well, yeah, I did know because I wrote about it, and it's in my books. And what I wrote was, okay, I've done everything I possibly can to exterminate myself. And, it has not been possible. So I'm going to go out into the world naked and just surrender myself to the fucking holy road. And that's what I did, And it was like, it was the beginning of a life of insane adventures, that took me deeper into alcoholism and drug addiction, but at the same time it took me into, what would eventually, in retrospect, become an understanding of like destiny or something, some kind of acquaintanceship with the concept of there being a destiny that is way bigger and way wiser and way more powerful than anything I could possibly, achieve or imagine or contrive to, make happen or manifest in any way, shape, or form. That it just acquainted me with, the miracle magicness of existence, but in a way where I was living totally unconsciously, and yet I was being on this, shuttled through, this insane universe on this magic carpet ride through all kinds of people, places, and events and adventures and just stuff, man.
Do you believe in destiny?
I do now. I mean, of course, how not? Because the thing that Bukowski told me was, he said, you're never going to be a writer until you've experienced life. Something to those words. Maybe it wasn't quite so polite as that, what he said, but he was like, you ain't going to be shit until you live a life.
Yeah, I think it was like Aaron Sorkin who said, like, if you're under 25, you can only write about yourself in your life, but when you're over 25, something happens where like you could start writing about, you become empathetic towards like other people's experiences.
That's quite possible.
Right.
I mean, for me, it was like I had to go out and live a very extreme life. I didn't start really writing with authenticity until I got sober 20 years ago, and I started suddenly. It was like I was in such excruciating existential pain in my first year of sobriety. I hit a wall and I was like, fuck. I don't have drugs. I don't have sex. I don't have adventure. I don't have danger. I don't have, high risk, adventure. What the fuck? Here I am, sober, 48 years old, jerking off in New York City, famous, lots of money, and I want to kill myself because I don't know what my fucking higher purpose is, and I'm totally at odds with this whole existence. And that was when I hit that incredible bottom where it was like, close to suicide, sober, like a year. Just came back from working with the Yakuza in Japan and, all this other stuff. And I was like, fuck, and suddenly it hit me that I just started vomiting words onto paper, like almost automatic writing. And I wrote like pages of books full of just straight up gibberish. And I didn't know what the fuck was happening to me. I would just sit at a table and just be like, just writing like weird stream of consciousness, gibberish, like spirit demons and shit, just vomiting onto this page through me until something just cleared out. And suddenly I just started writing. And these things eventually developed into these books. And then I started living all these weird experiences. And then it took me back in time. And then I went and resurrected all these like journals that I'd written with it, when I was a teenage junkie. And I found these journals that I had them. They'd been stashed in my mother's garage for 30 years or something. And I found these things and I dug them out. And they were all mildewy and weird. And the pages were all stained with blood. And like fucking carbon stains from the fucking heroin spoon and stuff.
Jesus.
And I started going through these pages and going like, holy shit, this is the life that, I almost extinguished, that brought me to the next place, to the next place, to the next place. Where I lived all these different incarnations in this one life without actually having to physically die in this body. So weird. And I resurrected all these pages and I started editing this stuff like I was like working as an editor to edit the pages of poetry from some dead guy. But the dead guy was me.
Can I just want to read something real quick.
Really weird.
Jonathan Shaw. This is like crazy, bro. Jonathan Shaw is the great nightmare anti-hero of the new age. Iggy Pop said that about you.
Whoa.
Hold on a second. Just hold on a second, okay? Anti-hero, like this is an anti-hero.
Yeah, taxi driver.
Right? This is an anti-hero. I'm upset. Clint Eastwood. I'm obsessed with comforting the upset and upsetting the comfortable. I'm obsessed with that.
That's my motto.
I know. I'm reading your website.
But that website...
I just want to give people...
I didn't even make that website. That thing, I haven't looked at it for over 15 years.
I'm looking at it because I just want to kind of... As we're immersing ourselves into your story, I just want to kind of shed a little bit of like light from up here on it. Jonathan Shaw's deviance is only exceeded by his clever ability to weave his own sickness into true classic of American literature, Marilyn Manson.
Whoa.
Shaw's work ranks with the best, Johnny Depp.
No way.
I mean, look, so here's the thing, like...
Bukowski.
I
got a blurb. I'm the only living writer that has been honored to have actual true blurb on my books from Charles Bukowski.
Yeah, I saw that. When you handed me that card,
he said I'm a hunk of shit. What did he say? He said Jonathan Shaw is a hunk of shit, cunt-licking mama's boy or some terrible thing.
Is that his way of showing affection?
Yeah. That's Bukowski, man. Right. He's a true punk rock.
All right.
Man.
Can I ask you a question? Because I know you from the meetings.
Yeah, you know.
I didn't know you were. I didn't know you were famous or anything.
Well,
so
it's not like I go around, with a.
Well, yeah, but I'm just.
Hey, I'm famous.
I'm just learning this, and you just said it. So, how were you famous at that time? Was it through
at what time?
You were going through your history till you got sober.
Oh.
And then you said you were famous and you had money.
Yeah, okay, that's a whole other thing. And that's really the only thing I'm, legitimately famous for. I still have not been, even with all that praise and all that, critical acclaim and all that shit that I've had as a writer, I've never been recognized as a writer.
But it's kind of cool, though.
I've never made a dime off.
Honestly, let me just say, like, for some weird reason, to me, that's kind of makes it even cooler in a way, because it's like super punk rock and like, you know, it's like this like gem that you find that's hidden, and I don't know. I'm excited to listen to whatever you do have, because I can't really read.
I became legitimately famous as a fucking tattoo artist.
Yeah,
I was like
really
one of the most famous tattoo artists.
Google Jonathan Shaw, it's like Johnny Depp's tattoo artist. That's what it.
Oh, wow.
That's kind of what. Well, that's kind of like what the low hanging fruit of what you're famous for. And there's photos of him with Johnny Depp.
And you never outlive that.
And he kind of, I think Johnny Depp like got a lot of his Pirates of the Caribbean characteristics from him, dude.
No way.
No, like that's the thing. Like, and like I just posted a photo of you on my Instagram from your, like, look at this, bro. Like, oh shit!
Okay, so
the gold teeth and shit. It's so
cool. you before.
So when I was living on the road between Mexico and Brazil, and I was working on ships, and I, was hoboing through Mexico. This was in the early 1970s, where tattooing was not popular. Tattooing was not cool.
It was bad.
It was not polite.
Right.
If you had a tattoo, you were some kind of a scumbag or
Hell's
a criminal
Angel
or a fucking, foreign legion, guy who'd been kicked out of his country. It was
Russian prisoner.
Yeah, it was not polite to have a tattoo in polite social circles. It was none of that. When I started tattooing, I started tattooing by hand in sleazy port towns in Latin America. And then I, moved to Brazil. And when I was in my early 20s, I met some other, scumbag. And, we started building homemade tattoo machines together and practicing on each other. And pretty soon we put our hands on a rock and said, we're tattoo artists. And, started tattooing people in the neighborhood because we were living in, like some slums where people got tattoos.
So were you a drawer, or you just went right into
I always drew when I was a kid, too. I drew and I wrote.
Okay.
I was never much good at either. But,
Would you give me a tattoo?
Yeah, I do tattoos.
Let's do it.
Still.
I have a gun in my garage. Maybe we could set up a day and you could tattoo a couple people, and we could
do that.
Get you paid, whatever your rate is or whatever. I think that'd be
could
really
do that
fucking
shit.
radical.
I'd be down.
Just a way to kind of like
That'd be cool.
make a little video about it, and because I would love for like my audience to like to get to know you. They'll listen to the podcast. We can make a video you tattooing us, and
cool.
We tattoo a lot here in my house.
Wow.
I have a cool gun in the garage.
Great.
And,
I'm the one who brought that up.
Cool.
what do you mean?
I really wanted him to tattoo me.
Who, Jonathan? She wanted you to tattoo.
Okay.
Yeah, Danielle.
Well, we could definitely
We'll set that up one day.
Set that up. So I started tattooing in a very traditional way that doesn't exist anymore.
You know
today.
Mark Mahoney?
Yeah, we kind of when
This
I
is a Mark Mahoney.
when I came to
my
the
friend.
States, now, after many years of just poking around in Brazil and finding my way, I moved to the States, and I got my first legitimate job in a real legitimate tattoo shop on the Pike in Long Beach, the old Pike, which was
what year was this?
This would have been like maybe early 1980 or something.
Okay.
And I worked in a tattoo shop on the Pike in Long Beach, which was kind of like, doesn't exist anymore. It was kind of like the West Coast Coney Island. It was carnival rides and, bikers and drunken sailors and, hookers and tattoo shops. And I wound up in one of these sleazy old tattoo shops for my first legitimate American job is a tattoo shop. And me and Mark Mahoney worked in the same shop.
So Mark Mahoney is just to give people...
Yeah, he's like a superstar.
Well, yeah, I mean, so Dr. Wu came up in Mark Mahoney's shop, who's a friend of mine who grew up in this town, who's probably the most famous tattoo artist alive right now. He's this Asian kid who tattoos Bieber, and he did like these skulls here, and he grew up in Agora.
Wow.
But he apprenticed at Mark Mahoney's shop, and one day I got that Mark Mahoney gave me this Math skull, which is a group I was in called Math. And
cool.
Mark Mahoney is in Black Sails. with starring John. You know the movie they did about Johnny Depp?
Oh,
Black
yeah,
Mass.
Yeah.
So Mark Mahoney is the guy in that. He's one of Johnny Depp's like
Yeah, he plays
friends
a cop or something.
No, he plays one of the like.
Oh, yeah.
But when you see Mark Mahoney and you hear him talk in this movie, I feel like he's the only one who really seems like he is what he's
legit
pretending to be.
Well, because he's from Boston.
Yeah, like it's like I want to like because Wickham is a younger kid, and a lot of my listeners are younger. They don't really know who Charles Bukowski is or Mark Mahoney or so. But you can, you know, you can connect the dots through Dr. Wu and then Black Mass and Johnny Depp and it connects down to like. Where how Charles Bukowski was your mentor, like in a lot of ways you were Depp's mentor, and it's just cool.
There's a lot of weird, interconnection, and it goes very.
Do you still have a relationship with Johnny?
With Johnny Depp?
Yeah,
he's like a little brother to me. He's like my little brother, but. He's on one path and I'm on another. I don't want to talk shit about him. He's just on a different path.
What about Hunter?
He drinks a lot.
Yeah. What about Hunter?
He does a lot of drugs, and I don't. So that kind of puts us in a different vibrational stage.
Yeah.
I love him. He's a beautiful human being. He's an incredible talent, amazing mind. I love him. He's like my brother.
Right.
But we don't always connect because we're on very different frequencies right now.
Yeah,
I remember you were saying that ring you had or something that was on your finger forever.
This ring,
the
skull ring. Yeah, I gave that to him. He wears it all the time. There was a bunch of us that wear this ring.
Did you guys ever?
How long have you had that ring on?
I've had this ring on since I'd say about 1989. So 1990. What's that? That's 30 years.
Yeah, I remember before you lost weight and got all healthy and stuff, it would look like it was like pinching your circulation.
Probably. I must have lost, 75 pounds.
It's amazing. You look
dude,
really
you
good.
Understand.
Thank God.
No, like you, but it's not just that he looks better. There's a certain kind of energy that is different from you. Like when you used to come to Primetime, he had long hair. He wore these like cool glasses, and he would get up and share cargo pants. Like he rode on his motorcycle. He would come and share, and it was just like dark and like I fucked with it because I'm a like angry punk rocker also. But like coming here today, it was like, oh my God, it's almost as if something happened in the past 5 years to you.
Yeah,
It's changed you.
A lot has happened. Well, I guess for the last 7 years or 8 years.
There's just a different, almost like humility emanating from you that I feel like wasn't there before.
Yeah, probably so. I've been drinking ayahuasca on a very regular basis for the last 7 years.
DDA!
And,
my friend DDA
if
is
there's
really into
anything that will bring you true humility,
ego death, right?
Ego.
But I think you should
whooping.
back that up with you do it for a purpose. You don't.
I do it in religious ceremony,
Right,
or whatever
right.
you want to call it. Spiritual, discipline, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
I do
It's
it in
not like an entertainment.
Oh
thing
hell
or
no!
something.
There's
Right.
nothing entertaining about. I mean, there's nothing recreational
Right.
about getting your fucking shit whipped, like manhandled into shape through a conscious contact with spirit guides that will beat your fucking ass if you step 1 inch off the tightrope. You're going down.
Oh,
Big
you mean
Paul
the people
can
with you?
attest
The
to
people
this.
with you?
What?
You mean the people with you?
No, I mean the fucking
Oh, you
spiritual
mean-
connections,
okay.
the spirit guides, the guides of
What do you mean? So
disincarnate spirits.
They keep you in line.
They teach you stuff. I have conversations with Sometimes they're very patient, very loving, and very kind, and very very what's the word, supportive. But they don't suffer any foolishness or lack of good intent. So
See, like I
They cut all the bullshit out, right?
you get very clear direction, and the longer you choose not to follow it, the more you suffer. It's very much like having a really hard-ass AA sponsor.
Can I ask
Except-
you a weird question? So you go on these spiritual paths with these spirits. What do they think about Jesus and all this religious? Do they give you, or is it just an inward journey and it doesn't
It's
really?
an inward journey. I mean, I think everybody has their own interpretation. Everybody has their own guidance. Everybody has their own guides. Everybody has their own consciousness. Everybody has their own karma. Each one is, we're like snowflakes, man. Every human being has their own journey that's individually tailored and tapered to their soul's edification and evolution. So, this is where...
Can I see that book real quick?
Yeah.
Sorry.
I
Wow.
just sold the other two to your homeboy.
Yeah, DDA. He's big on
He's
ayahuasca
great.
and all
yeah,
kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
He's awesome.
Do you do this with other people or alone?
yeah. We do it in ceremony.
Okay.
I've never been one for doing it alone. I mean, there are people that do that.
Does
and
that help in a way, having the community?
Yeah, for me, it was that's what I know. When I came into this, I came into it into a community, and it's a very disciplined practice. There's no, like hippy dippy rolling around in the mud under a tree. This is like we sit in very disciplined concentration and meditation, and we sing certain spiritual songs, I guess you could call them. They're hymns. We call them hymns, but they're in Portuguese, and we sing these hymns. Thank God I'm fluent in Portuguese, so it's very easy for me, and I have that musical background from my father, so I really get into it. I love singing. Their prayers is what they are. Their prayers, their teachings, their guidance, and we sing these things, and then sometimes we will sit in silence for a couple of hours, in total silence, just breathing and tripping balls and receiving guidance from divine sources that come and teach us shit. And that's the disciplines that I've been following.
When you first made this decision to try this, were you a little bit conflicted because of sobriety and all?
No, not at all. Not at all. Because I knew what my intention was. It's all about one's intention, I believe. For me. I can only say for me. But when I was 10 years sober, I was losing my shit. I was like 10 years sober, and I was like, I'm lost, I'm miserable, I'm in an existential crisis. I've, studied the 12 steps, I've practiced the 12 steps, I pray, I meditate, I have a sponsor, I do all this shit, I go to meetings, I try to live a sober life, and I'm fucking loony.
I think it's good for people to hear this, because I hit a wall. At about 10 years too. I found new addictions.
Yeah.
I was all,
Oh yeah, I was like sex addict. I was like fucking, scared of everything. I was worried about, money. I was broke. I was like, just totally addicted to the material world.
Yeah.
I
feel like
God, what a miserable existence not to have drugs to take the edge of existence off. I was in hell.
I feel like
I couldn't. I was like a scream looking for a mouth, and I'd already written really brilliant books, and I can say that with all humility because those books came through me. I was nothing but a channel. I don't take credit for anything I've done. Any success I've ever had is far more God's success than my own. I am a servant. I'm honored and privileged and blessed to be able to serve in that capacity. So I could say that I have been the midwife of brilliant works of literature that belong to the Holy Spirit, not me.
Speaking of that, I just kind of want to just read something. You know the Leonard Cohen song Anthem? You know Leonard Cohen?
I know Leonard Cohen.
Yeah, this little thing real quick. I just want to read something from one of his books.
Sure, yeah.
It reminds me of this Leonard Cohen song that Father John Misty actually just covered.
Wow.
Yeah, well, do you know who Father John Misty is?
I do not.
Yeah, he's a newer artist. He covered this song, "Ring the Bells."
I like
There's
the name.
There's a crack. It's a great name, right?
Yeah.
He actually was Josh Tillman, the drummer of Fleet Foxes, and then he went solo Josh Tillman and then did a bunch of hallucinogenics and said, this is not who I really am. I want to be Father John Misty and tell my truth. But the name Father John Misty is sort of like a joke. It's a grandiose, like existential, like name, like stage name, but there's the irony is that that's when he was actually singing his truth.
Cool.
Rather than being Josh Tillman and singing about like what he thought would sell.
Yeah.
But so there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in.
Yeah.
That's like this Leonard Cohen song.
Yeah.
There's a crack in everything, whatever. So I just stumbled across this part in your book where it says, Into the Stars 108, the wound is the place where the light enters you. Rumi. What's Rumi?
He's a poet.
Rumi was a poet from the
Way back.
Yeah,
5th
okay. So it goes,
something.
and then that's
He was a religious man.
that's the quote that starts this
Enlightened.
chapter, paragraph, and it goes. It starts with, woke up covered in sweat and dried blood. My whole face was hot, throbbing in pain. Everything hurt. Nothing was right. Just like kicking heroin, not knowing if it was day or night. I squinted at my watch. 2 hours had passed. I stayed like that, lying in the dark for a long time, thinking, remembering the haunting details of that weird, melancholy dream, afraid to go back to sleep. Then in that odd half-waking state, laying in the shadows of my haunted room, out of the darkness, I saw the face of my mother, my beautiful mother, my insane, demented, violent, unstable, unstoppable, suicidal mother. Dude, this is just the beginning of this random chapter I just opened to because I just thought it would be cool to
That's
read.
one of my favorite chapters because it's the conclusion of the book and it's where he actually.
That's what I do, you know.
He actually.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean that I haven't read that since I wrote it.
Wow.
10 years ago or whatever. But I love that. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I love hearing that because that was like purely. This is what I was saying. I can't take credit for this stuff.
Wow.
This stuff is more brilliant than I could ever imagine.
It's really
being,
good.
because it was literally given to me through a higher consciousness that was downloaded through this apparatus. This fucking rotting carcass was blessed with this.
I know what you mean.
Higher,
I do.
Stuff. And came through me, and what an honor!
God, I'm
to
sorry.
keep reading.
I gotta continue this. So this ended with my insane. So first he says that his mother, my beautiful mother, then my insane, demented, violent, unstable, unstoppable, suicidal mother. Surrendering to the vision, I called her hazy image up from the dim, angry, forbidden back rooms of my being. Closing my eyes, I could make out her face clearly. She looked just like Narcissa, which is the name of the book.
Yes.
And I want to kind of talk about that in a second. But my mother, Dolores, she's the Spanish word for pain. My mother, Dolores, the Spanish word for pain, was only 20 years old when she'd murdered herself and left me an orphan.
Is that real?
Wow.
It's
somewhat.
It's real in a feeling sense.
So Narcissa is the name of the book.
Yeah.
And are you sort of relating different things back to that?
Of course.
So how is that? Can you kind of shed a little light on that?
Well, you'd have to really read the book, but the bottom line is this guy. It's
hard to explain.
It's hard. You'd have to read the book. It's a journey. This guy goes into a journey of insane sex addiction, codependency. She's a teenage crack whore living on the streets in Rio de Janeiro. He's an ex-con gypsy, recovered heroin addict who comes back to his home of origin in Brazil after being imprisoned in Mexico for many years for heroin traffic, working with the cartels, and then he, gets out of prison in Mexico, gets sober, and moves back to Brazil and falls in love with this teenage crack whore. And
I'm putting the parallels together now.
And his mother was a gypsy, alcoholic whore who killed herself when he was a kid, and he became an orphan gypsy on the streets grew up on the streets of Rio de Janeiro, little pickpocket thief. And so, you know, through his sobriety and his spiritual quest, it leads him into a relationship with this ghost of his mother, reincarnated as a teenage crack whore. And they have this insanely violent, unbelievably dysfunctional, hilarious, and tragic relationship that eventually brings him back into the wounds, like the really bleeding, festering, infected wounds of his childhood that he has to surgically intervene spiritually in his quest for redemption, in his quest for healing, in his quest for psychic change, for spiritual growth. And he has to go into the darkest demonic closets of his life. And through that relationship, it opens all those bleeding, infected wounds up for him to examine, what made him, what makes him, what the source of his existential pain and suffering in this incarnation has been. And it was a passage. It was a passage that he had to live through. And in the end of the book, that relationship ends in this horrible, violent fight where she knifes him, and it's this whole thing. And that's when he's laying there, and suddenly he sees his mother, her face sort of transposed over the face of his insane lover of the last several years, and suddenly realizes that he can be free of those wounds to the extent that he can acknowledge them. So it's a very much a spiritual rebirth, and at the same time
it's cathartic. It's a healing process.
Yeah, but there's something he says in here. Let me see if I can remember it. I don't know. He says somewhere in there. He says something like in that last chapter. He says, because that's where it really sums up the whole book, where he says some things you never get over. Yeah, let me see that because I can find it. It's so funny because I haven't looked at this in like 10 years. But there's this something that he says in the end here.
I was like really curious too.
Where he says, "Oh my God, yeah, this is where." Oh my God. Yeah, you want to read on to the end of this chapter because this is where it really sums up the whole idea of the book. Do you want to read it?
Either way.
Yeah, just pick up where you took off because this is where it really does summarize the whole point.
So yeah, my mother. This is where my mother, Dolores, the Spanish word for pain, was only 20 years old when she'd murdered herself and left me an orphan. Dead at Narcissia's age, the poor deranged creature had gone through her short, savage stay on earth dragging the name of pain behind her like a death sentence, and pain would be her final legacy to me. With all her sensual, passionate, mad Romany fire and laughter and gaiety, her joy and hope and childish optimistic lust for life, and her dark, unmanageable agony and confusion, that obscene, insatiable hunger for death, the curse. I called to memory the way I'd found her that stinking, cold, humid winter day, her naked white body sprawled crazily across the dirty yellow linoleum like a broken doll, lying dead on the floor, covered in the expired blood of her sad, chaotic little life. Everything splattered with that dark, oily blood. blood, so much fucking blood, weeping from both her cold, dead, bluish wrists. The flesh of her throat ripped open like a gaping black pit of bottomless horror. These guys, dark. Her body lying there, immobile, like a thrown-out, deflated balloon, dull and tinted with pinkish red flecks of blood. Her skin cold and gray as a bundle of wet newspaper. Blood everywhere. So much blood, bad blood, sad blood, alcoholic blood, mahremi blood, cursed blood, tainted, poisonous, angry, irritable, broken, tragic blood. My blood. How deeply ingrained that kind of psychic scar tissue really is. How persistently it runs right down to the very core of an essence of and lifeblood of who we are and always will be. People like Narcissia and me. And how perfectly appropriate, I thought. The spirits increase. Vigor grows through a wound. I could feel it as I lie there in the dark. The healing grace of redemption entering my life through an old, cold, festering, long-forgotten wound. I could hear my mother's voice again now, echoing, whispering to me in the cold winter wind whistling outside my window. As the wind howled away outside my window, I thought of the long road ahead. O Lungo Drome, my only home. Finally I fell asleep. I dreamt of my bittersweet Dakini, Narcissia, traveling home at last, back to Alpha Centauri, flying through the stars at the speed of light, light, light. After that, I did not dream again.
Wow.
So, like, that's... Learning to Lose is like the name of the podcast, and it's the name of the brand, wow. And it's all about how the pain and the suffering and the flaws and the imperfect versions of ourselves. It's all about learning.
You just made him relive some shit there.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, learning to
big time.
But like, it seems to me that like all that hurt, all that horrible stuff was like the way.
It's fuel.
It's the way to the light.
It's the only way.
It's
to
dark.
The light. You
it's
cannot
darkest before
bypass.
the dawn.
You cannot bypass the demons. If you are in recovery and you are plagued with demons, you're not going to tiptoe across that.
You got to face them, huh?
You're not going to sidestep that. You're not going to get around it. The only way, the only way out is through. You've heard this 1,000 times.
Oh, and it's not easy, and sometimes it takes decades.
Takes till you fucking. It might take more than decades. It might take several more lifetimes before you really awaken. But we're on a conscious intention to awaken as best we can in this lifetime. And I think, that's a huge blessing, because if you go out and look around, the world is infested with zombie-like unconscious humans.
Seems that way, huh?
And that, there but for the grace of God, when I see people that are just addicted to their television and, walking around scared of their own shadow and worried and, consumed with fear and greed and lust and all this stuff that, that makes us human, but can also, destroy our humanity. I just say there, but for the grace of God. Thank you, God, for, giving me this little minimal bit of consciousness by which I could, connect to something bigger and more purposeful that could give me a chance to serve something better than just this rotting carcass of needs and wants and
I don't know if you noticed, Pat, but as you were reading that, it really was affected him. It was neat to see.
A tear came out.
because that came from his soul, and then you were just, it's been a while since he's heard it. It was pretty interesting. Yeah.
No, I mean, I cried buckets writing this book because it was, for me, it was a connection. It didn't heal me. It didn't suddenly thrust me into this enlightenment, but it was a step in that direction.
Earlier you were talking about like some things you never get over.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuck with me because like part of me knows that's true, but then my ego is like afraid of that being true. Like I want to be over trauma and obstacles one day.
You don't want to be over it. You know why? Because, I mean, sure, you don't want to be tortured by it every minute of every day. But even in the big book of AA, it says, our dark experience is one of our greatest assets. Something to that effect, yeah?
Yeah.
Because that's what gives us compassion, shared suffering with those who are out there really, like eating shit, and also gives us the authority and the permission by which we can share our experience, strength, and hope with somebody that, if we hadn't been through all that darkness, we'd just be preaching to somebody, and that preaching doesn't. Nobody wants to listen to a
So the
preacher.
thing to look forward to, I think, is you're not going to be free with it. It's going to be with you, but you're not going to suffer from it, and you'll be able to use that.
It's a tool.
It'll become a tool.
It becomes that alchemy where we turn shit to gold.
Yeah.
We turn our suffering into something useful that we can use to serve others.
And it also brings you closer to the light continuously.
Of course, because
continuously.
through service, we're able to connect with our fellow human beings, and that's our brothers and sisters in God's eyes. In God's eyes, we're all. It's the first two words of the Lord's Prayer, our Father.
Right.
Don't say my Father, your Father, our Father. So if it's our Father, then we must be brothers, and if we're brothers, then if we can make that connection through shared suffering, compassion, then we're that much closer to God.
Right.
Can I bring this back for a minute? Because I just want to get a little clearer picture. So you became famous as a tattoo artist. So you became really proficient in tattooing, and you built a name for yourself, and that's who you're known as, pretty much.
Over years and years of apprenticeship and learning, and then practicing and tattooing in Brazil, and then I came to the States and I apprenticed with some of the great old school tattoo masters, and then I sort of developed my own style, and eventually, after traveling around the country, tattooing in different tattoo places all across the country, I moved to New York City, the city of my birth, and I established I worked with some pretty famous guys there for a while, and then I opened my own place. And that became like, tattoo history, because that's where I started tattooing all these rock stars and movie stars. And, I became pretty innovative. I started doing a style of tattooing that nobody ever heard of, that I just cooked up.
What was the style called?
It was the tribal style. I pretty much started that. I mean, there was a guy named Leo Zuleta here that was doing traditional Borneo tribal designs, and he was just copying that stuff and doing it. But I started doing like wild style graffiti tribal work, and nobody had ever seen that shit before, and it caught on.
That was a trend for a while too, right? Or it's still kind of a trend, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's in every tattoo shop in the world, but I started that, so I became like this innovator, and people were coming from all over the world to get a tattoo from the guy who does this special kind of tattooing. Now everybody does it, but back then I was like, I built a name for myself by doing shit that nobody else was doing.
Yeah.
And and then I also I started to get famous, word of mouth, this and that. And then somebody approached me and said, we want to do a tattoo magazine. We need somebody who's in the community and knows the traditions and knows the the modern, that knows the ancient, knows the history, somebody who's passionate, somebody who's proficient, somebody who's got respect. We need somebody like that. And you also happen to be a writer. We see that you've been published. Da-da-da-da-da. We want you to be the managing editor of this magazine that we want to start. So I started the world's first legitimate tattoo magazine. And
What was that
it
called?
was called International Tattoo Art. It's probably still exists. I don't know. I mean, I stepped off after a few years, but that also got me more famous as a tattoo artist and, whatever. So I just, shit just happened. And then I was in a movie with Clint Eastwood.
Which one?
Tightrope, it was called. I was a young guy. I mean, I guess, probably about 30 years old when that happened.
Oh, so all this happened when you were in your 30s?
No. The Fun City tattoo thing in New York and the International Tattoo Art magazine and all these museum shows that I did, that was when I was like in my 40s. But it started, in my 30s. But, I didn't get famous till I was in like my late 30s maybe, mid 30s, early 40s, and then it just...
Was this
and then when I got sober at 48, I dropped off the map. I just was like, fuck this. I don't want to be famous anymore. I'm sick of making all this money and being a whore to this thing that I used to love, and now I just do it for money. And I don't know what to do. I need to find myself. I'm sober now. I got to start this spiritual quest. So I just dropped everything, and I moved to Brazil. And that's when I started, writing.
Did you ever spend any time with Hunter S. Thompson?
Very limited time. Couple of.
I know Johnny spent a.
There's a book out right now called "Who Killed Hunter Thompson," and it's an anthology by many, many different writers and artists and acquaintances of Hunter's. And I've actually got like a 4 or 5 page story in that book that tells of my, my pretty dramatic time with and around Hunter Thompson. And I'm not going to tell you what the story is because I'd encourage you to go out and buy the fucking book.
Yeah.
It's not my book. I won't make a dime off it, but it's an anthology about, it's kind of a what do you call it? Like a verbal history, a spoken history of Hunter Thompson by people that knew him. So I got a story in there.
I'm curious,
it's a cool story, actually. So
I'm curious what like some of your favorite artists are.
My favorite artists?
Music, I don't know, maybe movies.
Oh, shit.
Just stuff that you like.
God, it's endless.
I know, I'm sure it is, but like,
endless. You got to narrow it down because, I mean, it's endless.
What are you listening to right now? Or
the last few years, I've listened to mostly Santo Daime hymns, which is the music that we play in the ayahuasca ceremonies. And I've become very, very enamored of that stuff. But, I grew up listening to, straight up fucking rock and roll and straight up jazz.
like Zeppelin and, the Doors or Pink Floyd.
I grew up knowing Jim Morrison pretty well as a kid.
Crazy,
Frank Zappa was an early friend of mine. When I was just a kid, Frank Zappa took me under his wing, and it was a real nice.
Did you ever
guy.
get to know like Anthony Kiedis or any of those guys?
I knew Anthony, subliminally. I mean, we kind of like, hey. He
Right,
came to a
right,
couple
right.
of my art shows.
When you said Scar Tissue, that reminded me of his book called Scar Tissue. But
Scar Tissue? I never said scar tissue.
In the book.
in your book, you said something about scar tissue,
Psychic scar
and it
tissue.
just like reminded me. I was like, oh, Anthony Kiedis has
Well, we got
Gotten a
mutual
lot from
friends, so we have that connection. But I don't know him well. But
Do you know John Frusciante, the guitar player of Red Hot Chili Peppers?
who became like a serious junkie.
Yes, but he's actually
Sober guy?
He's just a really interesting artist now.
Yeah, I know who he is.
He's not I don't know if he's necessarily sober or not, but he's like okay and
Good.
He's like amazing, like just kind of similar.
No, I don't know him. I mean, I know who he is.
Like there's certain artists like Zappa and like Harmony Korine and like Larry Clark and Gus Van Sant and like John Frusciante. He left the Chili Peppers because he was like, I don't want to be like pop art. I want to do this over here. A lot of artists, I think Pink Floyd kind of had something like that, and like Radiohead, and groups that whether you become uber popular or not, when you're doing something that's very specific and you're wanting to do it, it's coming from a place of like Vincent Gallo. Like, have you seen Buffalo 66?
Yeah, I hated it.
Oh, you didn't like Buffalo 66?
I don't think so.
Maybe.
Is that the one where there was like a lot of... No, that was... Actually, I did like that.
Buffalo 66 is...
No, I liked that movie.
Yeah,
I liked that movie.
Yeah.
That movie was good. I know Vincent.
Oh, fistful. So these are I consider you to be someone that I look at as sort of in this same kind of circle of people who...
Jim Jarmusch should do
I read a Jim Jarmusch quote.
Well, Jim Jarmusch,
and that's a perfect example of the kind of person I'm talking about.
Well, Jim Jarmusch is family to me. I
Dude,
mean, we
coffee and cigarettes.
Yeah,
right.
He's total family.
He did that, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us what you guys are talking about? Is this movies?
It's artists. It's like artists that make art for like art's sake, and like Gus Van Sant,
cinema art.
Yeah, well,
okay.
Gus Van Sant.
He's talking about music, cinema.
Here's an example. Okay, Gus Van Sant,
whatever.
Yeah, Gus Van Sant did a movie about Kurt Cobain called Last Days. Okay?
Didn't see it.
It's literally. He also did Good Will Hunting, which is like amazing. Like, nominated for all.
You were talking about going back. You were talking about Vincent Gallo, and you said Buffalo 66, and I was like, yeah, that was a good movie. But there was one movie he did
Brown
after
Bunny.
that. I hated that.
Yeah,
that was disgusting.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying, right? Yeah, Chloe Sevigny actually sucks.
What a waste of
Chloe Sevigny actually sucks his dick in the film. You see his dick, you see Chloe Sevigny giving him head.
What
in the
the
movie.
fuck kind of bullshit is that?
Well, I mean, it's just that's the thing that's so cool about Vincent Gallo is he makes stuff that no one's gonna like. Just because he wanted to make it, you know what I mean? But I hear what you're saying.
I call that self-indulgent.
Maybe. I don't know. I thought that movie embodied
sue me, Vincent, but I mean...
Well, because it was this painful... He was on crack, and it was a painful... I kind of forget what the thing was, but Gus Van Sant made a movie about Kurt Cobain.
You can't erase that shit once it's out there.
I've heard some stuff about that. He got some flack about that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that he did something like that. Joaquin,
well, I guess it's cool.
Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix did I'm Still Here with Casey Affleck about him trying to become a rapper.
Wow.
You know when Joaquin Phoenix...
I remember when Dee Dee Ramone, who was a good friend of mine, became a fucking rapper for a while. Do you remember Dee Dee Ramone as a rapper?
No.
Dude. Google that shit on fucking YouTube or whatever and just go like Dee Dee Ramone raps.
Right. So was Dee Dee the...
Dee Dee Ramone
guitar
was
players or...
Dee Dee Ramone was Dee Dee Ramone. Bro.
I know, but which one was he? Was he?
I don't know, bass player or whatever.
Right.
He was a. We had the same
NoFX.
girlfriend.
Like NoFX, we just got a chance to film NoFX. They're another example of this kind of.
There was a girl that he'd been going out with when she was like 13, and then I got her when she was 17. Sloppy seconds to Dee Dee Ramone.
I also think the Ramones were that too.
And I was with her for like 5 years. God. Like Dee Dee, I did all these tattoos on him. Dee Dee was the coolest fucking dude in the world. I mean, he was just no guile, no...
What's guile?
Guile? Like no posing, no, trying to be anything.
Yeah.
Dee Dee was just like, yeah, man, what the fuck, and then he went into this thing, was he like... Yeah, this fucking rock and roll thing. I think rap is going to be my next groove, And he did this fucking rap song that was like so demented and so fucked up, so deranged and so authentic. Just it was beautiful. But I mean, it's really the most fucked up thing in the world. It's Dee Dee Ramone being a rapper, and just
Andy Kaufman.
I think he was kind of slightly retarded, Love that guy, man.
Yeah, the Ramones are great. Like Andy Kaufman.
Oh my God, the best.
These kinds of artists who just, you know, I don't know. I'm always interested in someone that's doing something different, and like unique that hasn't been done before. And that's always what I've loved.
Everything's been done before. It's just a matter of doing it with a next level of authenticity, or making it your own.
Yeah,
making it your own.
And it really feels like you haven't seen, like when Joaquin Phoenix. So just to give you some.
He's a fucking genius.
Yeah, but just to give you like a little bit of like,
he's been through some dark shit.
Well, so he actually wasn't trying to become a rapper, right? He was making a 4-year-long movie with Ben Affleck's brother Casey about him quitting acting after receiving an Oscar for Gladiator. I'm quitting acting.
Good.
And I'm going to start rapping, right?
That's
but
healthy.
it was a character study on a fictional character. You know, he wasn't actually trying to become a rapper, but the entire world thought he was. He went on Letterman. He had his glasses on. He was disrespectful. He performed at Live.
Giant beard. His hair is like super long.
You've seen the image of Joaquin Phoenix with the beard and the glasses, and Letterman says, "You come to my fucking interview. You're chewing gum on my interview." He says, "All right." He takes the gum. He puts it on the desk. It's like crazy, and literally the whole world was like, "Fuck this fool. He's tripping. How dare you like walk away from this kind of career?" But then, and actually, he couldn't get a role for 4 years after this movie was made because nobody knew whether it was real or not. And then he came back, The Master, Her, nominated for all these Academy. He came back like 4 years later, just swinging. Like he's still a great actor.
Oh, he's a fucking genius.
But to do something like that's my favorite thing he's ever done, because it was like. He played that role for 4 years.
Wow.
Everyone hated him for doing it. But there's footage in this movie of him doing coke with hookers and, making music and complaining about how Leonardo DiCaprio gets the private jet and he's fucking in the minivan. And just, he went into this really selfish, you saw, he meets with Ben Stiller and he's like, making fun of, have you seen the movie?
Yeah.
Dude,
it's been a while,
but. Like, you're just like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah. And I don't know why it's not more popular. The only thing I can think of, or anyone who's ever done anything like that, it's like Andy Kaufman. Like the world hated Andy Kaufman because
Who's
he was
Andy Kaufman?
wrestling, the comedian who wrestled women. And
see, I'm not really.
You remember that show Taxi? That old show.
I lived in Brazil, most of those years. Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of. There's big gaps in my cultural, understanding of, American culture. I mean, there's some things that I really deeply know about that a lot of people never even heard of. Mm-hmm. And then there's other things that like everybody knows about. And I'm like, who, what?
Right.
I missed whole decades in this country by living in South America, so there's a lot of shit that gets talked about that's common knowledge to most of y'all that I'm just like, what?
Well, that's what you meant
like
about the podcast and stuff. Like you don't,
Yeah, but the cool thing about you, about Jonathan, is like you can tell that he's not like when you're willing to just be honest and open about all the things, like, and you're not like trying to hide certain things and be. It's like, I don't know. There's like a freedom and like a honesty about. I don't know. I like that a lot. I respect that because I don't think hiding and lying and pretending and presenting some image of yourself that's not really what it. I don't think that serves anyone, not you or anyone watching. And that's a part of like what we're trying to do is like, can everyone just be like honest? And then I think maybe we'll get closer to like what I mean is like maybe you don't look good in the photo, but like that's okay.
I've got a little.
You can
sticker.
post it anyway.
I got a little sticker over my mirror where I have a mirror in my kitchen that I usually look in once or twice a day, and there's a sticker above it that says, "My vulnerability makes me strong."
Mm-hmm. That's like everything, dude.
Yeah,
that's the fucking message, bro. And I love like you really. When I went to your website and when I read the quotes, it makes me realize that like it's nice to have like little. Like things that define like what you're about, you know, because I don't think we have like enough of those, you know. Like
One more time, what does it say?
My vulnerability makes me strong.
Like that's a great.
That's like what Joe Rogan said on this thing I was listening to today, where he said, you know, it builds character to get your ass whipped.
Yeah.
And we all know that as people in recovery, because we wouldn't have survived all these years without our fucking medication. And it's not only survived, but fucking thrived and prospered and triumphed in so many areas. We wouldn't have been able to do that if we had not been whipped into some fucking submission, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody sailed into fucking, you know, alcoholic recovery on the wings of victory.
It's just
you know?
it's just so the opposite of what you're taught. Learn how to win, success, you know, blah blah. But
it's totally counterintuitive to this whole fucking materialistic culture. It's totally counterintuitive, but it's the only true path. I mean, at least for
I think so.
People like us.
I think so, yeah.
And we're the lucky ones, believe me. There's a whole world of zombies out there walking around with their fucking face masks on, watching TV 24/7 and, you know, jumping off fucking, you know, 20-story windows because
it's not TV anymore. Now it's social media and
the whole thing, the whole matrix is designed to enslave the human consciousness and turn us into
it actually
robots.
is designed. They have algorithms that are designed to,
So and now they got this fucking
is my greatest strength.
Is my strength.
My
now they got like fucking wait a minute. Now they got like fucking Elon Musk, you know, like wanting to implant fucking, you know, computers
Elon,
into people's
the
brains.
Neuralink.
Neuralink.
But wait, you said my vulnerability is my
strength.
Something like that.
I think it might be my greatest strength.
Well, my vulnerability makes me strong.
I don't know about greatest. I mean, that's making it top.
I think it kind of is though, because if you can,
something to think about.
It is for me. Like it's been a journey that I'm on, and it's kind of like we just watched this documentary, The Social Dilemma. Did you see it?
Yeah.
Oh, I've heard.
See,
of
I
that.
like talking to. I like.
It talks about what you were
here's the
just
thing
talking about.
Elon Musk.
I gotta watch that.
Yeah,
you know,
you do.
like,
yeah.
Humans are evolving.
Where's my
Okay, the internet and technology is a part of that evolution. So we can have an open mind. What are you looking for?
My little BlackBerry phone.
Oh right, yeah.
That's where I write everything down.
Or we can
find it.
we can fight it. I don't necessarily.
Yeah, I'm a
know.
futurist. I'm about the future. Like, I'll get a Neuralink.
Well,
But a lot of people are like, oh my God, like, what if you go blind? I'll maybe wait for the
But no,
second
that's what I'm
generation, but
saying.
I
It's
want to
like,
be with it.
I don't know. I would too.
Don't do that, man.
So I don't know.
Don't you dare do that, man. That would be game over. No.
I don't.
can,
What
he's-
if we have an open mind? And I mean, look, I was able to look up stuff while he was sitting here. Quotes. It made the podcast better. The information is all here. I can use this in a good way or a bad way. So what's the problem? Like, yeah, let's all get closer to the truth. Let's all get more information available to us right now. Like, let's do it. Let's evolve. What's up, bro? You know that he's not even a boomer. He's
Even people my age are super against the Neuralink and everything. Just because it's like they're afraid we're gonna become robots, but like we're already robots, dude. Or like people are afraid of like having a chip in their head. Like your phone is already a chip that you choose to have on you.
Exactly.
Like location,
we just lose
microphone, camera.
It's already all there.
It's better than a chip in your brain because it's like you're addicted to it. So it's like you think you have control over it, but like you don't.
No, but maybe it's not better. Maybe it's worse because you have to like hold it and you have to interrupt the conversation by looking at it. If it was just something that was like there, maybe it wouldn't interrupt the flow. Maybe, dude, you know what I was thinking about the other day? How fucking dope would it be if I could just like transmit what I was trying to say to you?
I think that's what he's trying to do with Neuralink, right?
But dude, like Charlie got here, and what if I could just look at him and be like, you know, I love you. I don't know. It's like you can't describe certain things with words.
Yeah.
They're limiting. But if you could like...
But what if you're transmitting things you don't want to?
You wouldn't. You choose what See, that's the other thing about evolution and technology is you can never predict what it's going to look like. If you watch like the original Blade Runner, like, you know, Ridley Scott's like really good at like predicting what the future is going to look like. That movie takes place in the future, 2020.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's when, but because Blade Runner was made in 79, I think. But his version of the future, like he didn't think we were going to have touch screen phones. And
Yeah.
I don't think that the
He
idea of a
didn't
cell
get
phone.
it right. Who got it right was fucking
Stanley Kubrick.
George Orwell.
Oh yeah, he's ill. You know who that is?
Yeah.
Oh wait,
Aldous
George Orwell.
Huxley.
Wait, George Orwell.
1984.
Right, but did that have anything to do with?
That's what we're living in right now. Brave New World. Aldous Huxley.
1984 is a movie.
Fucking test tube babies. All this kind
yeah.
of thing.
Have you read Doors of Perception by him too?
Aldous Huxley.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. But Brave New World, that's the book. If you want to see what's happening today, predicted like close to 100 years ago.
So wait, what
80
happens
years
in the?
He's kind of onto something too.
this? Oh, no doubt.
Ted
Whoa.
Kaczynski.
Holy shit.
You know who that is?
No.
Yeah, of
The
course.
Unabomber.
Oh shit!
That's his book.
Wow.
Whoa, how is it?
Yeah, you know,
He
this
had them
was.
publish this.
He,
on
the guy was a
front
fucking
page of,
genius.
like, the
See, that's the
news.
thing. Is like the difference between like a genius and a
Whoa.
psychopath. Like most leaders, most horrible, evil leaders, they were like onto something. But they
Look at
just
this.
their ego.
First,
just
let us
fucked it up.
postulate
You know what
that
I
the
mean?
computer-
Like, but if they could
Holy
just
shit, this is like.
I
I'm
wanna
just
read that. Can I
randomly
see that
open
home?
the page.
first of all, the title is
First,
everything.
let us postulate that the computer scientists succeed in developing intelligent machines that can do all things better than human beings can do them. In that case, presumably all work will be done by vast, highly organized systems of machines, and no human effort will be necessary. Either of two cases might occur. The machines might be permitted to make all of their own decisions without human oversight, or else human control over the machines might be retained. And he just goes on and on.
The
This
book is called Industrial Society
fuck.
and Its Future. And it's about why the Industrial Revolution is going to is the beginning of the decline
Yeah.
of the human race.
So
Open
why
the
did you do
gates to hell.
the? Why did you do the bombing?
Well, it was a statement saying these are the things that are wrong. I'm bombing these things, like
Okay.
you know these things that are contributing to the Industrial Revolution happening.
God
like
damn.
So-
you should watch the it's called Manhunter. It's a show.
Can we do a little?
Have you heard of?
I see it on
Manhunter?
Netflix, right?
Yeah, that's
It's
a
on-
show about Ted Kaczynski.
Oh, wow.
Them trying to catch him. The guy couldn't be caught. They had no idea
Yeah.
who he was or how he was doing it. He was having bombs.
Yeah.
He was making them
Mailing
in the
them.
cabin in the woods and having them mailed. And he was a Harvard graduate, I think.
Whoa.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
like dude was like just retarded smart.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
so smart.
Yeah, this book is amazing.
I
need to
love
get
shit like
this.
that. I have the Anarchist Cookbook over there too, and I like
shit.
tripping on like weird shit like
I
that.
need to get this book.
Can
Yeah.
we do a little me, you versus you two? Because I know you and I are on the same tip.
Well, I mean, look, it's not about being versus. It's just
Well,
look.
let's just do a little.
Okay, but hold on. Let me just say this: it's happening. Okay,
Yeah.
you can't fight it.
Yep.
Right.
So what are you going to do?
Well,
You want to
well,
argue about it? I don't. I could argue your point.
Okay.
No, but I could literally build
Fine,
it. I'm
let's not do it.
No. We could do it. I'm down to do it. But before we do it, I just want to say that I have records here. There are vinyl records. I love vinyl. I love old film. I love vintage old things. I love jazz.
Yeah.
This is his jazz record I'm listening to. Is Red Garland.
Oh my God,
Miles
I grew up
Davis.
with this shit.
But I love old stuff. Okay, it doesn't mean that I'm gonna fucking abandon. The future is the internet. It's technology. It's social media. Good luck trying to fight it.
I'm not even talking that
But I'm
old.
saying if-
talking really like old, like thousands of years old.
We're never gonna be able to go back to that. So let's
Well,
embrace the
never
future.
say never because it might go full cycle.
Yeah. we
It may
don't
have
know.
already
Maybe.
existed.
Who is that? Tell her I said hi.
Anyway, I think this conversation is interesting because it brings out other things that are
Yeah.
higher laws and stuff. But
I mean, my thing is like, I just try to use what's available to me. Like, dude, trust me, starting a TikTok account for me was like hard because it's girls, it's all dancing and weird things. And I'm like, I'm good. I don't want to fucking do that. I just want to like have my Instagram, but I like did it anyway. And I tried it out because I want to have an open mind and I want to try to, was I trying to copy what everyone else is doing? No, I'm like, I'm going to do my version of it. And it was like, we can use these things as tools to do good.
Understood.
Okay, so what is your argument?
Okay, it's not an argument. I have a hypothesis. It's not a theory. It's Billy's hypothesis. So Billy's hypothesis is that before civilization, when everybody was a nomad pretty much, all tribes were nomadic, that this was the pinnacle of humanity, and that we can't even understand their connection and their senses in modern day humans, and how they were advanced with the natural world.
Joe Rogan talks a lot about this, and something
there's
destroyed
indigenous,
all that, right?
There's untouched, uncontacted indigenous cultures. For instance, in the jungles of Brazil, there's indigenous, millennial
Understood, but we
cultures.
can't get in their heads because we're not.
But they're
from
living
that.
by the laws of nature. They're living in a pure.
But what I want to know, like, they can tell when it's going to rain
Yeah.
before anyone else, or
Because they're part of
they
the
can
ecosystem.
see like a tree or a branch, and but even their concept of the world, I'm thinking, is nothing like what we could even understand because.
Because they are connected to nature, to the Gaia, to the planet, to the
Yeah, but there might even
stars.
be more. I think there's more even. Like
They're-
the
oh, they're
pyramids.
connected.
Like,
More
how
than
did the
that.
pyramids get built? There it is, right there.
Well, they're connected to higher technologies because
Right.
they're in contact with higher sources that we don't even won't even
Almost
show themselves. to
Almost
us.
would be like animals, like they just are. Like time maybe isn't even a thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Like
they don't wear a watch.
I think I heard someone say the worst thing that happened to humanity is we became self-conscious. We became conscious.
Self-aware.
Self-aware, yeah.
And then fire.
That's when we split
Well,
up
that's
from
the
the,
Bible,
animals.
Adam and
That's
Eve.
when we stopped
Dog.
agreeing with nature. and like we
that
started,
dog doesn't know. It's not aware of itself.
No.
It's not worried about dying.
It's just living.
Yeah.
It's in the moment.
But anyway,
We
this
can't even be in the moment because we're so aware of.
Being alive.
Yeah,
and we
it's
need to be
weird.
distracted all the time. But the thing is, it's just to me a very interesting conversation because I want to get to the crux of human, of what it is to be human, and what it is to be human here in the 2020 is not what it was 5,000 years ago. And in fact, maybe we were more human 5,000 years ago, and what we are now is just distracted.
Yeah, that's
And,
yeah.
and that's why you have found this path from ancient tradition, right? Like possibly, and that's how and it's even when you get that peace beyond, they talk about beyond understanding, you're part of all of it, even the stars and the,
Yeah.
in a way that's hard to explain because it's your own experience. Do you know what I mean though?
Yeah, it's unexplainable except through connection with, that
I know,
totality
I
of
bore the shit
experience.
out of these guys.
I
when
think
talk
the internet
about
No,
can be
I'm
a-
like, dude, are you kidding me? There's nothing more important. That's why I love Billy, and I love talking about this. I'm sorry, there's a lot. I'm trying to promote this so people actually hear it.
That's what I
I'm
was.
doing.
Well, that's what I was going to talk about. Like the internet can be spiritual. Like what he's doing, he's using the internet to spread the message of
Yeah,
recovery.
it distracts
Absolutely.
me sometimes from the moment, but I'm
Absolutely.
just trying to share it with all
It's
the
a
other
tool. And
thousands
like
of
any
people.
tool, it can be used to destroy
good or
or
evil.
it can be used to build. You know, it's like
Yeah, that's right.
How
And
we
what
use
if-
it says that about
But
us,
what
not
if
the technology.
What if I
Exactly.
didn't need to make the stuff?
if
What
it's
if I could
used
just-
with consciousness and conscious intent, then it's a beautiful tool. If it's used unconsciously, it could just cripple the essence of your humanity, and that's a tool is just an inert object. It's a tool.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a personality. It's what you do with it. What your intention is to use it for.
Well, you know what seems to be the barrier is capitalism. Because I have this idea that maybe one day technology and the natural world could coexist, but it's capitalism that is addicting you.
Greed.
Addicting you to, because you don't know, I don't think you know what it's like. These guys are addicted to their phones.
You're becoming.
I'm becoming addicted to the phone.
I won't do it.
That's
BlackBerry.
good for you.
But it's
shit.
Yeah.
Yo.
a relic.
Let me just see
Good
this
for you,
real
man.
quick. Hold on. Let me just see this real quick. So I just want to say our guest tonight is Jonathan Shaw, prolific tattoo artist, writer, friend of Charles Bukowski, Iggy Pop, a bunch of amazing, cool people. And he still has his BlackBerry. Why?
Why? Because I don't want to participate in the fucking madness of technology addiction. This is a useful tool for me. I can write books on it. I can make phone calls. I can send text messages. And, I don't want to be connected to the matrix. So
Hey, I respect that. I really do. And
I tried to do that and failed really hard.
Kaczynski definitely respected that too.
yeah, well,
But I think because I was like,
But I want to connect.
You know what? We should all read this book.
Let me all do it for us.
yeah.
Because I think that's what's so cool is
We need people like you taking the fucking bullet for us,
For sure. None of this would be happening if it wasn't for
Yeah.
the following.
And I'm down. Like,
No,
I'm able to do it.
Well, you're rocking it, bro. Full respect, man.
You
Respect
know what might
for
be
that.
a fun idea, though, is to all of us read a book like this and then come back and talk about what we read. That might be kind of interesting because this guy has some
This
really
dude's got some serious shit.
interesting ideas.
And, capitalism in itself is not evil, just like money in itself is not evil. If you look at communist societies or communist countries, there's never been a happy ending.
No, I'm completely.
It's
That's my
always
biggest
ended with
fear right now.
Totalitarian, dictatorships. Look at China, man.
they have like a second Holocaust going on right now.
It's
Well,
exactly. They make
my
the
fear
Holocaust
right
look
now
like a
is we're going to
fucking
become.
birthday party.
Right. And nobody knows. It's weird. Like, it doesn't make the mainstream media because a
No,
lot of
mainstream
news
media
companies
is
have
totally-
ties to China.
Well, the mainstream media is totally owned and controlled by nefarious sources. I mean, we could get into some really deep,
And look, in no way am I promoting socialism or communism.
Thank
I'm
God.
just saying that capitalism first goes for the money, and the money's by getting people nicotine,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This shit, I'll spend more money than I have on this stupid shit because,
Yep.
So
But it also breeds innovation. So we don't know if
Yeah,
the
that's
iPhone would have
true.
ever
Well,
been
it's
invented.
inert. It's just like that tool. It could be used to, destroy or create. It's just like that tool. Sure, it can be co-opted by greedhead, reptilian fucking capitalist scumbags, or it could be used by anarchistic.
Well, the
capitalism.
internet started
For-
with the anarchist and the, very in the beginning, the government made it, but then everyone was sharing their
Yeah.
information for free.
And now it's totally infested with censorship.
Dude,
Like
Oh, my God.
radical
I had the
censorship.
video we made about you talking about the fight with Charlie. It's got taken down because you said you were describing what he said.
What? Who said?
Well, before he got in a fight with that kid who just showed up. Actually, Billy got in a fist fight with that kid yesterday.
Right.
And the kid was yelling at Billy, "You fucking faggot!" But so he was using those words. So Billy was the video's taken down because you said those words.
Said what words?
Oh,
Hate speech.
faggot, pedophile, whatever.
Because that's what he was calling Billy. So Billy was explaining what he was saying that provoked Billy to want to. And the video is taken down because you can't even say those words.
What?
So my video got taken down because someone was saying those words. Billy wasn't like saying them to me. He was just basically explaining what someone else said to him.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Good Lord. See, this is the beginning of totalitarian, control.
That is a fear of mine. That we'll
you
go
can't
so
even
far
say
into that we won't be able to get back.
Well, it's already there. It's already
Right.
there. Look,
Even if you're not like calling anyone one.
I mean, now
No, it's the same.
actually
I'm
you,
not-
you
I'm
can't
not, like,
even
super
say
against that.
You know
you
what?
can't
I'm not
even
that mad.
you can't
Because-
even say hello,
because-
ladies and gentlemen. You got to say hello, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone between, outside of, and remotely abstractly related to one of those. That's
But
how you have to introduce yourself.
I know. Like, hold on though.
This is just like,
Yeah.
But
It's
Wicca, I want to hear what Wicca
Like
has to say.
if someone
Mass
called him the N word, like a hard R, and then he repeated it again, they called me the N word, the hard R. That would be a problem. So it's like the same thing with the F
Lord.
word. You know,
Right. But like, so I'm just saying, like, but if we're not able to, like,
no, that's what the masks are about. Hello, there's no science behind that. It's all bullshit. Mask doesn't protect anybody from viruses. It's impossible.
Right.
It's like putting up a fucking, chain link fence to keep flies out of your house. You know, it's like
It's further removing us from our humanity because we can't see our
you
expressions.
can't, no face, no voice.
Kinda
It's a
scary.
fucking psyop.
Yo,
It's
like
a
I just
fucking
filmed
psyop.
I just filmed No Effects at Fat Mike's house, and I almost got kicked out because I can't do it. It's hard for me to do it because one, I get sweaty,
No, but
and
it's
two, I don't want to. I want to be able to talk to you, and I want you to be able to see what
It's
I'm.
a psyop. This is a fucking.
What is that?
what's a psyop?
It's a psychological operation.
Right.
Oh.
This war is being waged not by scientists, but by psychologists and psychiatrists. They are studying human behavior, and they are marking us for,
Control.
obedience training.
Control.
Sure,
Elections.
man.
Controlling elections.
Controlling humanity. Humans.
Controlling human consciousness through human behavior, man. This is some dark.
Well, this is like they're warming us
Shit.
up. It's like they're warming us up.
Well, it's the boiling the frog.
Yeah.
You know,
so
you
it's like,
slow
okay,
boil
so
the
when you
frog.
use words like death and 200,000 died,
my God.
you can't argue with that. Nobody can say, yeah, but wait, cigarettes killed more people. Why aren't we
Yep.
doing anything about that?
Or just driving your car.
Yeah,
kills
like,
more.
so, I don't know. It's just like, I was reading something today, some statistics, and I thought to myself, I can't even, because of it's almost like if somebody's like religious and they think, they believe that you shouldn't have sex out of wedlock or whatever, they just say, like, you can't do it. It says it in the Bible, and that's the end of the discussion. Like it
Yet
ends the
everybody does
conversation.
it.
Certain things are like conversation enders.
Yeah.
So it's like it's an epidemic. People are dying. End of conversation. And it stops the conversation. But wait, like everyone I've ever known who's had it wasn't even really sick.
Yeah.
I've known a bunch of people who've had it,
Sure.
including Chris's mom, who was like
Well,
very
his
sick.
own.
And
Can I
Mika,
say that? Can I
who-
say that?
What? My brother. Yeah, my
Yeah, his brother had
it.
it.
It's fun. Or whatever. I'm just saying, like, it's just
No, this
as soon
is-
as you start talking about that, you're like insensitive and you don't care. I'm not even saying I know anything.
No.
Do you have a
and
different opinion on this?
Yeah, a little bit.
Let's hear it.
Because I was watching this video today.
I wanna hear it.
Called "Scientists versus Flat Earthers." Like real scientists, like climate scientists, and dude, they just got demolished, man. Like, because they would say things that they learned from like one website and like one YouTube video. While these guys studied it for 7 years, and like they were calling the scientists uneducated, and it was like this whole thing, and like it really made me think about like what would be their like incentive to lie if someone like studied it for like 7 years. And if it was like a conspiracy, they would have to, all the hospital workers would have to keep it a secret.
No. It doesn't work that way. It does not work.
I don't
that
think
way.
it's intentional. It's just the consciousness.
It's like a pyramid. You know the pyramid? At the top, there's the all-seeing eye. Those guys know everything. Then you go down the pyramid. When you get down the pyramid, it's all on a need-to-know basis. When you get down to the bottom pyramid, the foundation of the pyramid, the worker ants that hold the rest of the pyramid up, they don't know what they're working for. They don't know who's controlling them from the top. They know nothing. They're innocent. They think they're doing good because they have been only given this much information. Then you go up a couple levels and they have a little more information. But it's only the guys at the top that have all the information.
Right.
And they give the orders.
But
going
all I'm
down.
saying is like I would be insane to say that I know more than an epidemiologist with a PhD.
Yeah, for sure.
That's just insane.
Well, that is insane. But there's for every epidemiologist that is supporting this fucking hoax, I could show you two that are saying this is all bullshit.
Right.
Did you see the movie Plandemic? Look it up.
No, is that where they say Bill Gates started?
Oh man, this is a deep rabbit hole. Deep.
Yeah. Well,
I've studied this extensively.
I don't think we necessarily need to go into that. All I know is I just want to have an open mind, and I don't want to think I really know anything ever. For me, it feels kind of like
Open mind is good.
Yeah, I want to have an open mind. I just think that, like, you know, for my whole life, I've always believed that there was. It always felt to me like no matter who the president is. It's always it just always felt to me like there was something else happening. And when I saw JFK, Oliver Stone's JFK, I actually just posted about this today. Something inside of me changed when I saw that movie. That's why I love film so much, because they have the ability to change a person in a way that no other art form does, I think. And JFK's assassination, you know, was like... The way this movie shows it, it's pretty hard to argue that there's something off about that. Ooh, yeah. And, you know, that's the way it's always been. There's always been other people. And if you think about it, whoever has the most money has the most power, and they're able to keep things the way they're supposed to be. And then I saw the Zeitgeist documentary. Have you seen the Zeitgeist?
Yeah. I've seen the first one.
And the Zeitgeist, it makes sense that, like, you know, you create these systems of economic wealth where you have like certain people that are like really controlling everything, like, you know, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, different Illuminati, if you will, or whatever. And it's like a game of chess where they're very, very smart, and they're thinking about it before it happens. They're like, okay, yeah, so the pandemic, it'll be good for this, and, you know, the Twin Towers will be good because it will unite our country and it'll give us a common enemy. Right. And then we'll be able to implement the Patriot Act, which will allow us to surveil everyone.
Right.
And then, okay, it's like a weird, like, it's like they're so fucking smart and they've been doing it for so long that it's not like... It's like even the smart people, they don't really know that it's almost hard to believe that it's happening.
Well, it's like what Joe Rogan was saying, like it was a conspiracy theory that like Democrats and super rich celebrities like were pedophiles and like they had an island. And if you said that back in the day, you're crazy, but
right.
It was real.
Yeah.
It was like a real thing.
Does anybody know where the phrase conspiracy theory originates from?
No.
What?
The CIA fed that catchphrase to the FBI, who put it into the widest consciousness. When did this happen? This was devised to debunk anybody who questioned the Warren Report.
Who questioned the what?
The Warren Report, which was the official explanation of the circumstances surrounding the assassination of JFK, and it was just totally incredulous and absurd and ridiculous, and a 5-year-old child with 2 brain cells working in unison.
Like the bullet went like this.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
It's crazy.
It's insane.
But
anybody that questioned that bullshit
is
report,
a conspiracy theorist.
They said, "Oh, conspiracy theory is widely debunked." These are all catchphrases that are inserted in there to take credibility away from the truth.
Yes.
It's fucking beyond.
Yeah. So as soon as you start talking about this stuff, they're like, yeah, even just saying that you're
widely
considering
debunked.
A conspiracy theory kind of makes you seem crazy. And I'm not saying it's some big conspiracy theory. I'm just saying that
it's not a conspiracy theory if it's not a theory. If it's no longer a theory. If it's a theory, that's just, well, I think maybe this is an idea. Let's investigate it. Oh, well, all the evidence points to it being true. Well, if it's true, then it's a conspiracy truth. And anybody that calls it a conspiracy theory is what I would call a conspiracy denier. Hello.
Right. Hello. So I guess what I'm saying is that, like, I believe there are 1% of people that have all the wealth and the power, and I think there's even a smaller percentage of those people who are like really I don't know. I don't want to say like puppet masters, but I just think that like, you know, I think that like Bay of Pigs and 9/11 and Vietnam and like all these things are like, they happened. They were intentionally doing these things.
Well, you sound
And
like one of them.
I think it's happening, and I think it's happening right now. Again, I mean, it's always happening. You know, I think
You sound like one of those conspiracy theorists, man.
right. Well, I mean, you know, and then once you're able to look at it 20 years later, in hindsight, you're like, oh yeah, it makes sense. But when you're in it, like right now, it's hard to see because you're like, oh, I don't want to be insensitive. People are dying. This is serious. Like, and that's the other crazy thing is it's not like it actually is a real thing, right? But like the way that they're spinning it, like Black Lives Matter, like that's fucking real. Like this shit is fucked up. But like when Antifa comes in and makes
George Soros,
yes, and
who you're not allowed to talk about,
right? Yeah, well then they come in and they plant brick pallets and they make. It's almost like they're capitalizing off of the African Americans' pain. Like they're making them look crazy.
So now the Black Lives,
we're going to use this as a thing because you can't even argue it, and it's like it is a thing. But now you're making it into something else so that we can be distracted from what's actually happening over here.
Right. It's like no
Republican,
longer
Democrat. It's like, no, like it's people. Like why are you trying to divide us?
Why?
Because
divide
so
and
we're
conquer. That's why.
Divide and conquer.
Like the old
Control.
A lot of distractions right now from like
insane.
us being more united as a people.
No, that can't.
I mean, we've never been more divided ever. And
that can't be allowed to happen. Unity is not
Yeah.
the name of the game for these, these
But I don't really know.
shit-eating, evil, fucking bitch, fuck.
I don't know anything for sure. I do like having the conversation, and I think the most important thing
here's
when
the way
you're having these conversations is to do that, is to have them with like love and empathy and like an open mind. Like I don't want to sound like I'm telling anyone anything because it's very hard to hear this stuff if you don't believe it.
Yeah.
So you have to say it. It's almost like I treat it like a. When you have a newcomer coming in,
This is not.
you don't want to say
There's no
God
fact.
right
We're not
away.
talking
You kind
facts
of need to like
here. We're just exploring.
I don't even bother.
You're obviously you're like angry.
Let me
and-
ask you this though:
I don't bother.
Does society and humanity need to be controlled?
That's
Would we
another
just
really
eat
good
ourselves
question.
alive if we weren't?
I think that's why.
Maybe the world would be better off if we were genocided
That's
down
illest
to
part.
500,000 people on the planet. That's the plan, apparently. I think the eugenicists, you've heard of the Georgia Guidestones?
No.
Look it up. The plan is to depopulate the earth through genocide, through vaccinations, and to wind up with a target population of under 1 billion
Thanos.
human beings on the planet. That means
1 million. God, that's so small. Why so small?
that's what they want.
You still
You'd have to look at the Georgia Guidestones.
You talk
look
to
it
him
up.
at all?
Georgia Guidestones.
He's like mad at me.
It's a
But
real
have you
thing.
seen?
Okay.
Do you follow each
Georgia
other?
Guidestones.
Yeah, it's
I wanna
it's
talk
the
to you a little
New
bit
World
about-
Order's kind of.
Some of this stuff actually, because I
Philosophy
really
set
think
into
that you're
stone.
like you have like a little bit more of an
It's-
open mind than most people, and you're like
Don't look on
smarter. I
Wikipedia,
think
whatever
that
you do, because that's all.
I can't hear you.
Don't look on Wikipedia, whatever
Oh.
you do, because that's run by
not a
the
What,
reliable
CIA.
source.
YouTube it or something?
Okay, guys,
Yeah, you'll find it.
we've reached our limit. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming. We're gonna do this again. Hopefully,
Can we do it again?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going to be back here next week.
Thanks
I
for
love
listening,
your
guys.
meeting, man. Until I move back to Brazil, I'll be a frequent flyer over here, whatever you want.
All right.